Hello, my beautiful souls, and welcome back to another episode of the Manifestation Babe podcast. Today, you are in for a special treat because I brought one of my friends to the show who just so happens to be a financial expert. And his life purpose literally revolves around helping you create financial freedom, which I know all of us want. So I met Mel Abraham, years and years and years ago through one of our mutual friends, James Wedmore, that I know so many of you are familiar with, especially if you've been through Business by Design and heard me talk about it, because I'm an affiliate every single year for Business by Design. And I'll never forget when I met Mel, I was so captivated by his kindness, by his compassion for humanity, by how genuine he is, and also how ridiculously humble the man is, even though he's literally one of the most connected people that I know. And his list of accomplishments are so effing impressive. They fall on a really, really long list that he'll never tell you about. Like, you'll never hear about it until someone else will tell you, like, oh, did you know Mel knows so-and-so and has done this and that and whatever? And it's like, what the fuck? Like, no, he didn't tell me any of that. And that's just who Mel is. And I love the man so much, and I love what he stands for. And the last time that I got to hang out with him, he told me that Hay House picked him up as an author to finally put all of his wealth creation expertise into a book. And that book just so happened to actually launch today. So with that being said, I wanted to pick Mel's brain on all things finances. As a CPA with over 3 decades of expertise, I wanted to ask him the good stuff. I wanted to ask him questions like exactly how to get started on investing your money. And I asked in detail, like, okay, and then what? And then what? And who do we call? And what do we type in? And what do we do? And it's so good. It's so much easier than you think. I asked him questions like, if someone has debt, should they pay off the debt first? Or should they start investing? Should they save? How much should they save? Should they wait to invest or start now? Do we do it at the same time? I asked for advice for the people who think it's too late. Some people think it's too late at a certain age. It's either too early or too late, even though it's never too early or too late. But I wanted his take on that. I wanted to ask about couples' finances and how to get on the same page as your partner financially, and a controversial question of whether he thinks that couples should get prenups or not. And his answer definitely blew my mind and made me go, whoa, okay, that makes sense. And the most common things, the most common beliefs that are preventing people from creating wealth. And I asked him about the safest places to invest your money versus the most risky, and so much more. I know you're going to get so much out of this episode. It's really juicy. But for those of you who want to get into all of the nitty-gritty specificities and the full, tangible step-by-step process behind wealth creation, behind building your money machine, his book, Building Your Money Machine, is officially out where books are sold starting today. So I am going to drop the link for that in the show notes. Make sure you get your copy. He's actually giving a ton of bonuses as well for the book if you choose to purchase it, which is so awesome. So now with that all being said, let's dive right into the financial freedom goodies. If you could guarantee making your dream life your reality, what would that be worth to you? Welcome to the Manifestation Babe podcast, where we take topics like manifestation, the universal laws, quantum physics, personal growth, and spirituality, and turn them into simple, powerful, practical steps to apply in your life. I'm Catherine Zinkina, manifestation expert, master mindset coach, and multiple 7-figure entrepreneur who has generated over $25 million in just 7 years. I am obsessed with helping you achieve everything that you once thought was impossible. There is no such thing as an unrealistic dream. And with the tools that I give you, Don't be surprised when every area of your life receives a massive uplevel. Are you ready? Let's manifest. Oh my God, Mel, I am so excited to have you on the show. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Oh my God, it's so good to be here, man. It has been a while, and I'm going, oh my God, I'm gonna be on her show.
I know you have a book coming up, and I'm just so excited for you because I obviously read it. I freaking loved it. And I feel like the whole world needs it because there's so much out there, especially in my world, around, money mindset and
Yeah.
how to think about money and money beliefs and things like that. And obviously, you cover that as well, but you're really in the nitty gritty. You're in the detailed, like, this is the how to become the king or queen of financial freedom in our own lives. So I'm stoked for this interview. I'm stoked to pick your brain. I'm stoked to learn from you. I'm stoked to share all the incredible value that you have with the world. So, first of all, I'm calling you the king of financial freedom. Is that okay with you? Because I literally see
I
you as that.
I am cool with that. I bet though it's not gonna get me out of emptying the dishwasher and taking the trash
No, you still have a family, you still have a wife, you still have a home to take care of. I get it.
out.
Mel, what does financial freedom mean to you? Like, can you give me the backstory of like why is this so important to you and how did you get into this? Do you have like a formal education? Are you self-taught? Like, give me the
Yeah.
deets.
I'll tell you what it means to me in a word first,
Okay.
and kind of we'll go in a word, it's choice.
Mm, that's
It,
powerful.
it Yeah, it really is choice. I look at it and say, I want to live a life where I feel like I get to live it instead of I have to live it.
Yeah.
And so I got a formal education as a CPA, as an accountant. So I was in the business realm and things like that. But the reality is that this thing all came about at the hands of a 6-year-old boy, because the fact was that I did what I was told to do. If you're going to build a business or you're going to build something, you go out and earn money, which means that in my case, I was building a business. You get on the treadmill and you start running and you start making money and cash is coming in. And I was doing it and everything was fine. The challenge was that in my eyes, I was doing the right thing, partly because that's what society said and expectations required and all that stuff. And then Jeremy came running in and said, Daddy, I drew a picture of you at school today.
I love this
And
story, you guys.
oh,
Oh my God. I both laughed and cried at the same time. In the intro of
yeah,
your book, I'm like, wow, that hits hard.
what it was. So like the picture he drew when I grabbed it was me, a stick figure standing in front of two computer screens with a phone in each ear and another one on the desk ringing. And I just showed Catherine that I still have two phones on my desk. So
He does. He has a whole screen behind him. I know he's looking at me with a screen. He literally showed me two cell phones, but I said, we talked about the difference is back then you had lack of awareness of that. Now you
yeah,
have awareness. You know when to power it down. You know when to shut down. And like you said, financial freedom is choice. Now it's choice. Like you can choose when to tune into that and when to tune out.
yeah, yeah, without a doubt. That picture, I saw it as a window into my soul. I mean, it was just a mirror into it in the sense of, hey, and it's easy. And I had so many people saying, hey, you need to get a work-life balance, you need to do this, you need to do that, and all these opinions. But the reality is that I could have come up with the excuses. Hey, kid, we need to do this. I need to keep the roof over my head. We got to, I need the profits. But if a 5.5-year-old kid understood profits, he probably would have looked at me and said, Dad, I care about your profits. I care about your presence. And as a
Mm-hmm.
single dad, this was the greatest gift given to me. And I was failing. And the thing was that if we go back a long ways, when I was his age, it's the first time I saw my dad cry. And my dad was an immigrant from a country at 17 years old, came here with nothing, and fought to get an education in engineering and all that. And I saw him as a tower of power, but here he is crying. And I look at him, the interpretation I got, the story I got was it was about money with my mom, and my dad's crying, saying, I'm disappointing the people I love. And I took that in and said, oh, if you don't make a lot of money, you're going to disappoint the people I love.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did what I was supposed to do. And then Jeremy draws this picture. And now I realize, wait a second, I'm making the money and I'm still disappointing the people I love. Oof.
Mm,
So there had to be a different way.
yeah.
That's how this all came about.
Yeah. So a lot of people equate financial freedom to making a lot of money. And if there's a point at which people get really stuck in this rat race where they're just
Yeah.
pursuing more and more and more and more and more. And a lot of people, I think that they equate financial freedom to just having a massive income and an income that keeps growing and growing and growing. But you talk about how that's not financial freedom in your book. And I'm just curious for people who feel like they're stuck in a rat race, who feel like they need to constantly chase that next promotion, more income, more business, more clients, and feel like they literally have no choice based off of that line of thinking that they need to have two phones and three computer screens and they need to have 12 jobs and three businesses. Like, how does one go about coming off of that rat race, coming off of spinning their wheels? And what do you define as financial freedom actually being if it's not just having an excess or a certain income?
This is a great question in the sense of I think that the first thing we all need to do, and I do this in the book and I do it with my clients, is we actually have to go back to ourselves and define our life. Because right now, if we start to look, who's defining our life? I was having a conversation with actually someone from the publisher. And he was a millennial, and he said, "I'm a millennial. I'm never going to own a house, and
Oh
this and
my
that." And
God,
I
I
said,
always hear that. Millennials
"Oh my
just
god,
complain and complain and complain.
yeah, yeah." And then I asked the question. I said, "Why do you want to own a house?" And he says, "Well, it's the American dream."
Mhm.
I said, "I get it. Here's my question: Is it your dream?" And he stopped. He goes, "I never thought of that." And look, I was victim to it too. I did the same thing. Chase, 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 chase. You don't know where the finish line is because that's what we're trained to do. The question really is we're put here to live a life. We're put here to live our life, not someone else's, not what society's, not what our parents say, our life. And if we slow down enough and say, what does that look like? And it'll change. You end up getting married, you end up having kids, grandkids, what it will change. But at the beginning, define what our life looks like because the freedom is living congruent to that destination and not something else. The chase typically is this never ending chase is because we're chasing something that we didn't define. And our degree defined it, our career defined it, society defined it, social media defined it, someone else outside of us defined it. And forget the judgment. If you are happy in a tent in Montana, ain't nothing wrong with, or a yacht in Monaco, you know, you do it. Now I'm picking the yacht
Me
just if
too.
there's any questions. Yeah. So, but I mean, allow you to, we were put here to live our life. And I think that's where we start to get in this never ending chase. Once we stop for a moment and say, this is what will make us live the life that way we want. And I'm saying we because I think that if you're in a relationship, it needs to be a we discussion. Then you go towards that. And there will always be someone with more. There will always be someone more. But that comparison will destroy us. I had someone that I know as a colleague, I would say, who's a billionaire and they are still in the chase. And I am watching this thing unfold, and it's going to be a train wreck, unfortunately, because what's going to happen? They've got a big bank account, they're wealthy in the bank account, bankrupt in life. And that's the
Hmm.
thing that I think that we need to look at is say there's this idea of financial freedom. There's a difference between wealth and the richness we feel in life. And I think it's the richness we should be striving for and then
Hmm.
saying how do I build the finances to make the richness the reality.
Yeah. Let's say someone does have like a really big vision for themselves, right? And going back off of like the rat race conversation, let's say they're like, well, Mel, yes, I've defined the life that I want, but it's like this big life. Like I want to have millions of dollars in asset producing income or whatever it is
Yeah.
to where I don't have to work anymore and I have these millions of dollars. Like, where the fuck do people start? Like after defining what they want, it's insane how little financial education is provided
Yeah.
to us, like zero, right? And we're learning, I find so many people learning financial education from TikTok, from Instagram, from, books like yours. Like
Yeah.
but they feel it just comes from all these places, all these experts. Everyone has different advice. You have the crypto bros, you have this bro and that bro, and
Yeah.
it's just like it's so all over the place. People are so overwhelmed. And I find that at some point with the overwhelm, people just essentially they just go, I don't know, I'm just going to hire someone to do it for me. And then they end up giving their money to someone who then screws them. And then they're left even more frustrated, even more defeated. And so, like, how do we take control of our financial freedom? And like, where do we start? Is there someone specific that you recommend hiring? Is there a specific asset that you recommend we start investing in? Is there a certain amount of money we put into savings first? Do we
Yeah.
first pay off our debt? I mean, there are so many
Yeah.
angles to this, and I realize it's a massive question, but I feel like the majority of people, they literally just don't know where to start.
Yeah. So here's, and I love this. So steer clear of the folks on TikTok telling you that the best investment is a $200,000 R8 when you start out, because there is one out there saying that.
As I
And he
have an
says,
R8 parked outside my window,
oh, well,
I feel called
oops.
out. No, just kidding.
But he's turned around. Yeah. So, but here's the thing. I want people, and this might be the CPA side of me, I want people to find safety first, growth second.
That's good.
And what I mean by that is this is foundationally, and we work through something called the wealth priority ladder,
Yeah.
which is this idea of making sure that every dollar has a job description. Because if we're going to hire 10 employees into our business, you don't bring a 10 employees and great, you're hired. I have no roles. I have no tasks. I have no goals. I have no job description. Let's go double the business. It's just not going to work.
Yeah.
But we tend to do that with our money. And so what we want to do is to sit back and say, what is the job description for every dollar that comes in first? And the wealth priority ladder helps you with that recipe. But the power of this is to make sure that you set it up, the job description, if you will, before you ever earn the dollar. Because once the dollar's in your hands, you have to wrestle with temptation. You have to wrestle with these other things. There's a reason I have a $900 coffee maker in there that I bought off of freaking Instagram. Like Stephanie's going, how do we get this? I go, Instagram?
Yeah. Those ads,
I
they
said,
work
I can
way
order
too
you a
well.
coffee. So first things first, know that every dollar needs a job description before it's earned. And it could be for the mortgage, it could be for the rent, it could be for clothing, it could be for fun. The beautiful thing about doing it this way is, let's say in that job description, that plan or the budget or what we call a cash resource plan, you have $200 for a night out. Now you get to go spend without guilt, without shame, without any of that, because it was already allocated. It was already done. So now you look at it and say, okay, safety first, growth second. The first phases of this ladder start with, first, I want to make sure that you have what we call a comfort fund. $1,500, $1,500 or 1 month's expenses. And this is not an emergency fund. It's to cover the medical deductibles, is to cover the transmission that might go out, something if you have kids or pets but it's just to say, we're not going into debt. We're not going deeper into the hole. And they may go, well, how do I get the $1,500? Yo, I'm betting if I came into your house, there's probably stuff like if you went behind me in those doors, don't tell my wife, there's a whole lot of technology in there I'm not using. And if I needed to get the money, I could put it on Facebook Marketplace and probably sell it. So the point is that I'm trying to make sure that you have a little bit of oxygen before we start up this journey.
Yeah. You have that oxygen mask
Yeah.
that if
Yep.
you need it, you can bring it down, take in your
Yep.
oxygen before you
Yeah.
land
So
the plane.
and then, yeah, exactly. Hopefully softly.
Yeah. Hopefully.
So that's the first step. And now you look at it and say, okay, the next phase is still about safety. One is it's about getting rid of destructive debt. Now, I am not one that believes that all debt's the devil. I think
Mm-hmm.
that there is destructive debt. I think there's productive debt. Destructive debt is going to be the debt that you use to finance things today, lifestyle, consumable stuff that you can't afford to pay for. And
Mm.
so you're robbing the future so you can live today. It's a little bit of the YOLO, you only live once kind of movement. The challenge is we have pushed our future off. And the question I'll ask is, are you disregarding what you want most for what you want now?
Such a good
Because
question.
now and I get it, we'll try to figure out the way I look at it, say, let's make sure that we have the future taken care of and that we're looking at that life and that's the direction we want. And we say, I still want this today. Well, then now let's ask a different question. How do I make this a reality today? What do I need to do? Who do I need to become? How do I need to show up? And I'm not trying to get an either or. I actually think that we should be living and we just got to get there by having the right dialogue. Productive debt is that kind of debt that will increase your cash flow or your wealth over time. So it could be buying a rental house with debt. Now, it doesn't mean you're reckless with it. You still have to be responsible. It could be even putting Facebook ads on a credit card while you're getting a multiple back on sales. It could be buying a piece of equipment. So you're using debt in a way that leverages cash flow and wealth coming in later. So I look at it and say that is okay if done strategically. So the only thing I want to do is I do want to eliminate destructive debt in this step. But at the same time, and this is something that's contrary to a lot of commentators out there, I want us to build what they call an emergency fund. I call it a peace of mind fund.
Love that. Language
Okay.
is everything. Love that.
It is. And the whole purpose of this is to have liquidity, cash available in a way to sustain you if there's some long-term impact, whether it's a health issue, a work issue, a relationship issue, something that you don't have to take stuff out of retirement, you don't have to sell things, you don't have to do any of that. That's the foundation of what we do. Now, where I differ with folks is there's a lot of people that say get out of debt first, then do this. I think you actually need to do both at the same time. And why I say that is debt management is a different muscle group than wealth creation. It's a different
Mm.
mentality. And so I look at it this way and say, it's like the dude that goes to the gym and only works out the upper body, looks really good until he puts shorts on, you
Yep.
know?
Yep.
Uh-huh. So I want to work out both muscle groups. Now, it doesn't mean you work them out equally. You might put, if you have excess cash that you're going to pay off debt, let's say you have $1,000, you might put $700 towards the debt pay down and $300 towards the wealth creation by putting it into this peace of mind fund to start. And I look at it that way to say, the point is, I need you to exercise the muscle. I don't care about the amount. Our ability to build wealth is driven much more by our behaviors, our habits, and decisions than it is by our money.
Mm.
And when you do that, now all of a sudden what we're doing is we're developing the muscle memory, we're developing the muscles, we're developing the behaviors. And I hear people will say, well, when I make more, I'll do it. I don't care if it's $5. I just want you exercising the muscle. Then we'll move it up when we get the chance. Here's a statistic that I think is really telling. 10,000 millionaires study, 79% were first generation, meaning they didn't inherit it, they didn't get it gifted, they didn't win it. So that's like 8 out of 10. Odds are good, people. Odds are good, you
I
know?
saw that quote in your book and I was like, I feel like this gives people a lot of permission
Oh,
to
yeah.
not get stuck in this belief of like, I was born on the wrong side of the, railroad tracks, or my family didn't teach me this stuff. And I feel like it just brings people permission to take personal responsibility and just know that so many people have done it and they can too.
I totally agree with you. Both of us are children of immigrant families that came with basically nothing.
Nothing. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not that it was handed to us. It doesn't mean that isn't without work. You're going to end up working but it doesn't have to be complex. It doesn't have to be complicated. And it is possible. I don't care what side of the tracks you came from, upbringing, skin color. It doesn't matter. That's my belief. And the other side of that statistic in that same study, which is really interesting, which leads to the behavior issue, is that 31% never really made more than $100,000 a year. So it wasn't big dollars that
Mm.
required it. It was what they did with the dollars that mattered. And so when you put those two together, you say 8 out of 10, and I don't have to make a lot of money, then what's the difference? Why is it someone that has $100 million, like a Mike Tyson, goes bankrupt, and someone that makes 100,000 ends up as a millionaire? Okay. Well, it's behaviors, it's choices, it's decisions. That's all it is. That's the difference.
So after getting rid of destructive debt, what's next?
So after getting rid of destructive debt and building that peace of mind fund, now we start investing
Yeah.
because
Okay. So
we have the safety cushion.
investing is a very scary word for people. I'll
Yeah, it
tell you
is.
that because they have no freaking idea where to start. They don't
Yeah.
know if they should buy an Airbnb business and consider that investing. They don't know if they should go to the stock market. They don't know if they should buy the latest crypto coin. They don't know if they should buy gold bars and put them in their
Yeah.
safe. You know what I mean? Like there's just so many different things that people can do, and there's
Yeah.
so much misinformation out there, and just not even misinformation, just different strategies available to people, just depending on what their like goals and desires are and what they think is best for them. What is your recommendation for people who want to start investing? Like, where do we begin? Who do we
Yeah.
call? Do we call you? Like, who do we call?
Yeah. Yeah. So actually, I don't know that you need to call anyone yet.
Okay.
So here's the interesting thing.
Yeah. Tell
I
us.
think complexity creates friction, friction creates risk, risk creates loss.
Complexity creates
Complexity,
friction.
friction, friction creates risk, risk creates loss.
Okay.
And so the first rule of investing is that we don't invest in anything we don't understand.
Valid.
Okay. So let's keep it simple. I have a very specific way that I do it, that I try to do this. Some people want to invest in real estate. Some people want to do crypto. Some people want to do all kinds of things. It's not where I would start because I think there's too much exposure and risk there and some complexity. So the very first thing that I would tell people to do is I'm actually going to tell you to go to the stock market, but not in individual stocks.
S&P
It just
500.
S&P 500, total stock market index, something low cost, low fee. Why do I want to do that? Let's just assume, one, we can get in the game, remember exercising the muscle, with low dollars, 500, $1,000 to start, and then I can put a couple hundred, so I can get in the game. Two, I diversify the risk across 500 or 3,000 companies. That reduces risk. Three, long term, the stock market performs at 8 to 11%. Long term. Four, the stock market has never gone to zero. And if it does, we have other problems. Okay.
Yeah.
Five, the stock market has always recovered. And six, there is a study, S&P 500, they followed and they said, if you invest for 1 year, it was like 69% of the time you're up. If you invest for 10 years, it's 94%. So I can, by holding longer, I can push the probability of success up. And so now I can get in the game earlier. I can be diversified. I can reduce risk and I can keep it simple. And if you really want to be simple, then I would easily just go in and say, let's do what's called a target date index fund. And now someone else takes care of the balancing of the portfolio. And you sit back and say, and what is the target date index fund? It's basically saying, hey, if I'm going to put money away and I don't need it for, say, 30 years, doing math live, I could screw this up, but 30 years, say 2055, you want the money. You go to Vanguard, Schwab, Fidelity, and you say, I want a 2055 fund. What does that mean? That
Mm.
means that they take the portfolio and they build it and say, will be aggressive today. And as we get closer and closer to 2055, they get less and less aggressive. You don't have to manage it. You don't have to do it. It's low cost, low fee. And you get this diversification that is self-managed. Now, as you get critical mass, you may change it. But if someone is sitting back saying, I don't know, do I do S&P 500? Do I do 100% of it? Forget it. Just go into a target date fund. They create the allocation themselves, and you can see what they call glide path, and they'll manage it for you. And it's low cost, low fee. You're in one decision, one fund, stay in there and just let it roll. And that's where I will usually have people to start, because I think it's the easiest way to get in the game. Here's the one thing we know. In order to win the wealth game, you have to be on the field playing. You can't be in the sidelines or on the stands. And so the sooner I can get you on the field, the sooner we can get you to win the game.
When you said they manage it or they grow it or what
So
you said they,
yeah,
who's they? Who are we trusting here
what we're
with our money?
trusting. So what we're trusting is say Vanguard to take, and really what a target date fund is say you're going to go in and decide to build this to yourself. So you take a total stock market fund, which basically is an investment of 3,000 or so stocks, and you're buying a basket. They own the stocks. It tracks the index. You don't have to worry about it. There's really no decisions to make. When you take a target date fund, that's one fund. But when you take a target date fund, what they do is they build it with 3 to 5 funds. So they'll have total stock market. They'll have a piece that's a bond index fund. They'll have a piece that's probably an international fund. And so they're making those 3 or 4 decisions for you, and you don't have to do it. So
Amazing.
it's Vanguard that's sitting there saying, we'll just put these 3 or 4 funds together and build it. And so there's a couple people at Vanguard, or I don't know if there's a couple people. There's probably a department that does it.
Yeah, yeah.
But there's someone that's actually looking at it and saying, what does that portfolio look like? And now say you're in 2045 and you're going to need the money in 10 years. They go, oh, let's make it more conservative. And now you're at 2050. We need it in 5 years, make it more conservative. So they adjust the percentages to bring the safety up and the risk down. And they just they do it for you.
I feel like that's simple enough. So
It's really simple.
is this okay? So let's say like it's 2055 now. Like, is that then the moment where we go, oh, now I can live off of this money? Or is there a continuation? Like, that's one way of investing and creating a income producing asset. And then are there levels and tiers? Like, where would people go next?
So when we talk about this, and I can go into a little more detail of how this breaks down, because generally speaking, I want them to start with the stock market. But how do we get into it? Well,
Yeah.
and so how do we get into it is there's this other little hierarchy. And the first thing is this, and some will apply to people, some may not. And I'm going to talk more from the US perspective first,
Yeah.
is this idea is that at the very beginning, I want to get what's called free money. So if
Mm,
you happen to be an employee and you're working at a company that has a 401k and they match, you put 3% of your salary in and they're going to give you 3%, you get the free money. And I can't tell you how many people don't do it. And I'll look at an audience when I'm speaking and say, let me ask you something. If I came around here and started dropping $100 bills on the ground, would you pick them up? And they all go, yeah. I said, if I told you you had to drop $100 bill, I'm going to put one on top of it, would you do it? And they go, yeah. I go, why are you not doing it in a 401k? That's what your employer's doing. They're willing to drop cash, but you got to drop yours first.
uh-huh.
So the first thing is that we will invest to get any of the free money that is allowed to us if we're an employee. Now, if you're not an employee, then this won't apply to you, which is okay. The second, so this is more about the location of where we're investing. It's still going to be in the stock market. The second phase is to look at it and say, okay, now let's look at, can I take advantage of tax rules? So this is where we would look at a Roth IRA. Now, I love Roths. in the US if you can get them. If you have too high an income, it doesn't apply. You can do some other nuanced things. But the reason I like Ross, especially, like I got a kid, Henry, he came into my program at 16 and a half.
Wow.
And
Smart kid.
oh my God, wait. So like at 17, we're on one of the calls, and he says, I'm 17 and a half now. And what do I do? I said, open a Roth. And he said, okay. 3 weeks ago, we're on a call. And he says, all right, I funded my Roth. How do I invest it? The same question. And I go, you're 17 and a half? He says, no, I'm 18 now. I said, great. I said, how much did you fund it with? I'm thinking $500, $1,000, he's 18. What is he? So he says, oh no, I fully funded 2023 and I already funded 2024. I said, hold on a second. 18 years old, you funded $6,500 for 2023? And he said, yeah. And 7,000 for 2024? He says, yeah. He says, well, I'm still living at home, so it's a little easier. And I go,
So cute.
let's do the math. I go, here's what's going to happen. I said, every dollar you put away at 18 years old is going to go up 107 times. I said, you're already a millionaire. At 60 years old, you will have 1.2, 1.3 million. If you did nothing, the only thing we have to do is avoid stupid. And we'll keep doing it. But here's the other beautiful thing. It's in a Roth. Whatever he takes out is completely tax-free. He's never going to pay a dime in tax on it ever again. And so it's a powerful, powerful account. If it applies, I want you to open a Roth account and I want you to buy the index fund in the Roth account. So we take advantage of Roth. We max the 401k at that point. If we have an HSA available to us, high deductible health plan, that's another powerful account. I want to take as much of the tax advantages in play there. Then we start to fund into brokerage. And now we have critical mass in place. And the target is this: 20 to 25% of your income being invested. 20 to 25%. Now, someone like Henry at 18 probably get away with 10 to 15%. Someone that might be up in years, then you might have to push towards 30%.
Yeah.
But as a general rule, 20 to 25%. Now, once I have that critical mass, this is when I start to look at things like real estate, alternatives, and other things, because then I have the safety cushion of diversification and critical mass. And why I don't do real estate at the beginning is, one, I can't get into it for $1,000. And if it's going to take me 50 grand to get into it, I buy one property. And that one property comes with a lot of risk. If I have a bad tenant, someone doesn't pay, I have to evict them. I can't rent it. I have a bad repair. And if I don't have the liquidity to carry it, then that first real estate investment goes bad on me. It can completely destroy you. And so I'm coming from a conservative's place saying safety first, growth second. So that's why I'll wait to do real estate. Now, most of my owned real estate, outright owned real estate that I have right now was prior residences that I held and converted when I moved. Mm-hmm. And everything. And a lot of the other stuff is through syndications and that kind of thing. But the reason I don't necessarily start with real estate is just the fact that I can't get the diversification. I need more to get in the game. And the potential is that if it goes against me, I don't have the cash flow to carry it.
This makes so much sense. And I love that you go from least amount of risk to most amount of risk. So it's like you're like winning as you go along. And then you actually, in the more risky investments, you then actually have, like, if you lose some, it's okay because you're taken care of from all these other things. And then that gives you permission and safety, and like your nervous system just feels ready to then play with the bigger investments. I really love your strategy. I think it's genius. I know, like, I'm just really good at tuning into the questions of the people listening. What about the people who are already like in their 50s and 60s and they feel like it's like too late to start this? It's too late to invest because, you talk about the 18-year-old and that's great, but not everyone starts at 16, 17, 18.
Yeah.
So for anyone who feels like it's too late, I feel like you have a really good myth buster for that. Can you talk a little bit about that?
The first response back is, what's your alternative?
Right.
I mean, because the alternative is either government handouts or your kid's couch. I mean, Ah, God, I think that we have to get in the game. And even if I get 20% closer, it's still 20% closer.
Yeah.
But we also have to understand that even at 50 or even 60 years old, the way we live and our access to creating income doesn't go away. And we actually still have decades ahead of us.
Mm-hmm.
And there's two things that we tend to not think through is we think that our wealth creation is linear. It's not. It's exponential. In fact, it's really flat at the beginning. We call it the wealth flat line. And where you'll be investing and you'll be listening and you're investing and after 5 years you're looking at it and go, I made 67 bucks. This guy's an idiot. Why am I listening to him? But what you're doing is you're compressing a spring, you're compressing a spring, compressing a spring. And there's a tipping point, which is I call the acceleration zone. That acceleration zone is when you get to the point where the money starts to get velocity and it works harder for you than you did for it. That is when you hit exponential growth. The only way to get there is a 4-letter word, and it's time.
Yeah.
That means that I have to get on the field, I have to play the game, I have to play it consistently, eat up the well flat line, get on the field. The other misnomer is that we think that, hey, I need 1 million or 5 million to retire. And you think you need it on that day. And on that day, it all comes due, you cash it out and you go live. No, 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 no. Because you're not spending all 5 million. The 5 million is going to continue to grow. Let's say you retire at 70
Mm-hmm.
and you have 1 million or you have 500,000. Let's bring it down a couple 100,000. That couple 100,000, unless you're draining it like crazy, is going to continue to work and grow. You're not taking all of it out at one time. And
Yeah.
so you're leaving a portion behind. So it's not linear in growth and it's not linear in decline either, because we keep the money working for us during that whole time frame. So
That
those are the first things that I would look at.
that makes so much sense because we're not treating it like a lottery, like lump sum.
Yeah.
By then, we have developed so many habits and behaviors, like you said, where that muscle is now well developed. So on that day, you still have that muscle. You're still going to be treating your money
Yeah.
properly and in a way that continues to benefit you. So you don't have to be afraid of like needing a certain lump sum, or if you don't have it on that day, then you're screwed. I think that's such a brilliant point because even I, when thinking about it, I'm like, oh yeah, that makes so much sense. I didn't even think about it that way. Okay, I want to shift gears real quick to
Yeah.
couples. There's lots of
Oh, yeah.
couples out there, and I feel like the number one thing that I hear, especially from, even my teachings with manifestation, is like the wife's on board with manifestation, the husband isn't. He thinks it's ridiculous, whatever. The wife is really interested in fixing her money mindset, but she's complaining that the husband is in scarcity mode and worried about everything and damping her vibe. In terms of your work with couples, how do you help couples get on the same page? Do you have any advice for that? And actually, let me ask that first because then I have a more controversial question for you.
Cool. Yeah. So here's where I think couples go wrong. When we talk about finances, you have to start with life first. Lifestyle. What's the vision for our life? We have to start with the vision. That vision will help us define the plan. The plan will determine the strategy. The strategy will set the tactics, and then the tactics will set the actions. When couples come together, what they do is they have conversations down at the tactics and action level. And when you do that, you tend to go to criticism, judgment, argument. None of it is good. So we have to elevate first the conversation and say, are we on the same page from a vision for our life? And what is each of our roles to make that vision a reality? And have the conversation up here and allow it to do the heavy lifting of tactics down below. Because now, if we're in agreement, like Stephanie and I, we spend the time having these conversations at the vision level. Now, when she came into my life, I didn't say she didn't care about money. She was more concerned about my health record than my financial record
Yeah.
because she came from the medical side. But now she gets it because of this idea of this is about us living fully expressed our lives. So what does that look like? We love to travel. We don't travel necessarily on Spirit Airlines. We
Mm-hmm.
travel nice.
Mm-hmm.
So we know that that's part of our vision. And, now with grandkids and so we get really clear on that and say, okay, so what do each of us need to bring to this equation to make that a reality? Because if we're living our vision, it enriches our relationship, brings us closer together, and unites us on this journey versus separating us. Now we can sit back and say, okay, let it dribble down to, okay, so here's the tactics and some of the things that we need to do. And now you have your roles, but it's defined by the vision that was already agreed on.
Yeah.
And that's probably one of the biggest mistakes that I first made early on until I realized it. And I think it's one of the biggest mistakes that couples make.
I would so agree with you because so many fights with Brennan, we come with the realization at the end of the fight, like, why are we fighting? We have the same vision. We're just
Yeah.
arguing about the how. Or
Yeah.
there's like miscommunication in the vision. Like, oh, I thought you wanted this. No, I actually want this. Wait, I want the same thing. Okay, we want the same thing. And then everything just trickles down from there. It's so accurate. And we call it chunking up. Like, let's chunk up.
Yeah.
Like, let's go up.
Yeah.
We're arguing in the weeds over here. We're getting in the dirt. Let's go up and just figure out what exactly are we fighting about? Do we want different things? Is it that we want the same thing? And if so, like, let's just get on the same page here. Okay, the controversial question I have for you is I see many different perspectives and many different opinions on couples and prenups. And should couples have separate finances? Should they share finances? Should there be pre-agreed finances? If couples don't have a prenup, should they get the postnup? Like, there's just so much on this. And I feel like everyone makes good points. Coming from a relationship that doesn't have a prenup, where my husband and I share everything and we are very both involved in finances, what is your take on this? What is your advice? What do you believe?
Yeah. So everyone has a prenup. It's just a matter of who wrote it. Did
Mm.
you write it intentionally between the two of you, or was it written by the state law that you live in?
Oh,
There's all
shit.
a prenup. Yeah. Everyone has one. So I would rather, just like an estate plan, same thing. Do you want to hand your future off to the state or the government or the courts to make the decisions, or do you just want to make the decisions yourself, just in case? There's always something that's going to govern it. So, with that as the precursor, there's a couple things to think about. Now, you're in a relationship without a prenup. I'm in a relationship with a prenup.
Hmm.
And I'll tell you the mistakes we made because I learned a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Please tell
And I would
us.
do it differently. Um,
Please
but
share.
in my situation, one, we were coming to the prenup. I was older when we got married. I was 50. I had assets and I had a son. She was really open to it and said, "No, I get it. You need to protect, your son and all of that." And and so we did one. What the mistake we made was that we had it done too close to the wedding, too close to the
Mm-hmm.
celebration.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, attorneys feel like they have to justify their work. And to make a prenup valid, each person needs to be represented. And what ends up happening is that if they feel like they're not doing their work, and so they stirred up stuff between us until again, we finally said, "What's our vision?
Yeah.
What do we want?" Sat with the attorneys and said, "We're done. We're done. Scribe it, sign it, we're done." And we put it away. We've never looked at it. you
Yeah.
know Now, do we have combined finances? Yes. Do we have individual finances? Yes.
Hmm.
And part of it is I want her to always feel that she has autonomy. And she does really well in her career, and she's amazing, but I don't ever want her to feel like she doesn't, and that I'm in control. I think this financial journey is a couple's journey. Doesn't mean that you're equal in the sense of involvement, focus, and all that stuff. It just means that you're on the same page and that you're having the same conversations and you're going the right direction. Because I watched both her mom and my mom, when our dads passed away, freak out and say, "Can we stay in our houses?" I don't ever want that for her.
Mm-hmm.
I don't ever want, when I got diagnosed with a cancer, I went and made sure that the trust was done, all that stuff within hours, just so I could sit with her and tell her, one, here's all you need to do. If God forbid the worst happens, it's not going to happen. But also, I did it for me to give me the peace of mind to know that my loved ones, my son, everyone's taken care of. And now I can go in peace to fight the cancer battle and do the right things. So we have to have the conversations. I think you can do the hybrid like we do. The key is the level of communication more so than anything else.
Yeah.
It's not about the money. It's about the communication. And I'll speak for the guys. I think that most women are in relationships. I guess I'm speaking for women too, then. But is what they want from us men is to feel safe. And so, how can I make Stephanie feel safe, cared for in this process? So I do it that way, and make sure that she feels safe. She doesn't feel like, what happens if he goes away, or this. No, I don't
Yeah.
ever want that, because that lack of certainty in a relationship is just going to erode the relationship.
I will say that drive for safety is so strong in or protecting and providing is so strong in the masculine because with my husband, every time we have a financial conversation and I lead with, like, hey, babe, can we talk about this? It doesn't make me feel as safe as I want it to make me feel. Or can we have a meeting on this? Or, like, I just want to make sure that blah, 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 blah. His ears immediately perk up and he's like, yeah, 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 come in this meeting. Let's sit down. Let's open all the accounts. I'll show you exactly how to do this, exactly how to access this. Because before I used to be the one in charge of our finances when I was growing my business. And then we shifted into I'm the money manifester and he's the money manager. And so he's very much in the finance world. But for me, it's still important that I understand what's going on. I understand how to access the accounts, what all the documents are, what the lawyers are saying, all of this information, even if I don't fully understand it, just being a part of the meetings and knowing that the fiduciary knows who I am and knows my name and knows what's going on and I can communicate with them. I can access this account. It's been such a game changer.
Well, and so Stephanie and I have that's the same kind of relationship. I'm the manager. But
Yeah.
she's in it. The
The
team
money
knows.
flower.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Okay, Mel, we can literally talk
I
forever, but I
know.
want to
I
respect your
know.
time. And you have an incredible book
Yeah.
that is at the time of this recording hasn't launched yet, but at the time that I drop this episode, it should be aligned with already being out. So I'm going to post the link to your book in the show notes. Everyone needs this book because I love how nitty gritty you went into this episode. Thank you so much for being so open and freely
Yeah.
sharing all of the tactical stuff. But that's not even like a percent of all the tactical stuff. Like you can see my post-its and my notes and stuff.
I
You
know.
have so much tactical, practical information, very step by step. Where can people find your book?
The best place to go is to yourmoneymachinebook.com. And when you go there, you'll see that there's links there to go to Barnes and Noble, Amazon, all that stuff. Just order it there. You can come back, put your receipt in, because I've got some gifts that will come along with it. One is that I'm going to give you a workbook that goes, a companion workbook that goes along with the book, because I want you to get the book, but I actually don't want you to just get the book. I don't even want you to get the book and read the book. I want you to get the book and do the book. And I want to help you do the book, because if you do the book, we change your life. And not only do we change your life, we become what I call the inflection point of financial change for your whole family tree.
Mm,
And that is a huge gift.
beautiful. Thank you so much. I'm going to drop all that in the show notes, you guys. So you'll have the link there. Make sure you check it out. Mel, where can people follow you? You have an incredible Instagram account.
I do. Thank you. Mel Abraham 9. I have no idea who the first 8 are, but we can hunt them down.
You're the lucky number 9. I love it. Mel, thank you so much. Once again, I really enjoyed this conversation. I took so many notes. I know everyone else did too, and their lives will forever be financially transformed because of the information that you share.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Manifestation Babe podcast. If you loved what you heard today, it would mean the world to me if you took a moment to rate, review, and share this podcast with someone that you think would benefit too. Sharing the podcast is the best way to help it grow and create a powerful community to join you on your manifestation journey. In the meantime, come hang out with me on Instagram at my handle @manifestationbabe, or sign up for one of my next manifestation courses or offerings at manifestationbabe.com.